I need to take a moment and explain carbon dating to you folks if I could. And by the way, I'm hoping when we get in Q&A, somebody will ask some questions about dinosaurs, because I would love to get into some of that. I haven't had time yet. But I want to explain carbon dating, and I'm going to try to do this in as simple terms as possible, because carbon dating can be really difficult and confusing for people to understand. So I'm going to try to simplify it for everybody and use very simple layman's terms. Okay? But first, it occurs to me when I explain carbon dating, there's liable to be some skeptics in here that are scientists and understand science, and you're an atheist, and I don't want you to go, oh, Bob, you don't really understand how carbon dating works. So first, let me tell you scientifically how carbon dating works, okay? Nitrogen-14 in the atmosphere converts to carbon-14. Carbon-14 is absorbed into vegetation. Carbon-14 is a radioactive isotope. It decays back to nitrogen-14. When something dies, the C14 that's in it is then measured against the stable isotope of C12, and based on that ratio with a half-life of 5,730 years, they can estimate how long ago that object died. All right, everybody follow that completely? Okay. That's only for those of you wiseacres who are like, well, I know science, and you're explaining this in a child's way. No, I'm getting ready to do that now, okay? But I just want to make sure everybody knows it. So, in very simple terms, yes, when the sun's rays hit the atmosphere, nitrogen-14 is converted into what's called carbon-14. It is what's called a radioactive isotope. What that means is it's unstable. Carbon-14 doesn't stay carbon-14. It's shaky, and it converts back into nitrogen-14. Okay? So what happens is carbon-14 is in the atmosphere right now. Carbon-14 is absorbed into vegetation. So plants, grass, trees are like sponges. They suck up carbon-14. You, as a human being, you eat vegetation, and you eat animals, and animals eat plants. That means all of us are loaded up with carbon-14. Look at yourself in the mirror. Head to toe, you got all kind of carbon-14 running through you. Want to make sure everybody understands this. But remember, carbon-14 is radioactive. It's unstable. It doesn't stay carbon-14. It converts back to nitrogen-14. So the amount of carbon-14 in you is getting less and less. But you're still alive. And since you're still alive, you keep eating things. And since you keep eating things, you're replenishing your carbon-14. So here's what happens. While you're losing it, you're replenishing it, so you're maintaining the same level of carbon-14 in you. Everybody got that? Think of a bucket with a hole in the bottom. You're pouring water in it. The level stays the same because water's coming out, but more water's going in. Everybody following me so far? Okay. When something dies, it keeps on losing carbon-14. Since it's not taking any more in, the amount of total carbon-14 in it is getting less and less. That's how they measure that against the stable isotope of carbon-12 to see basically how much carbon-14 it's lost. So, theoretically, you can look at something that's died. Take something that's made of wood, okay? This piano at one time was a tree. It was. So, right now, we could carbon date this piano. We actually really could. And based on it, because this piano right now is losing carbon-14, tomorrow it will have less carbon-14 in it than it does today. But it has less carbon-14 today than it did when it was still a tree. So what they do is they measure how much carbon-14 is in this, and they say, well, since we know about how much it loses, since it's got this much left, we say that this tree died X number of years ago. All right? That's pretty much how that works. Now, first let me say, carbon-14 is very inconsistent. There's all kind of problems with it. You could carbon date that and come up with 3 different dates, all right? And none of them could be right. But in some cases, carbon-14 dating can be fairly accurate for things that died recently. I want everybody to know that. However, here's an important thing you need to know. How long do you think it's going to take for this to run completely out of carbon-14 so you can't measure any left in it? Because eventually it's going to run out. The answer to that is about 100,000 years. About 100,000 years. When something has died, at the rate that it loses carbon-14, it will lose all of its measurable carbon-14 after about 100,000 years. So, if you carbon date something, older than 100,000 years, if it died more than 100,000 years ago, carbon dating it should be a waste of time because you shouldn't find any measurable carbon-14 left in it. Is everybody following me so far? Because I really want to simplify this for you. With that said, if I were to carbon date a dinosaur bone, dinosaurs supposedly died 65 million years ago, right? So therefore, if I have a dinosaur bone, how long ago should it have run empty of carbon-14 if it's 65 million years old supposedly? Do the math. 64.9 million years ago, right? That's how long it should have been empty of carbon-14. Remember I told you the defense attorney, he's going to tell you this and this that you didn't know, and this you didn't know, and this you didn't know? Did you know that in evolutionary dating laboratories, there have been many, many, many dinosaur bones that have been carbon dated? Every single one of them that has ever been carbon dated still has plenty of measurable C14 left in it. I have the documentation of those tests that were done on these various dinosaur bones. They're in my top 10 proof CDs. Okay? I want you to explain to me, how does a dinosaur who died 65 million years ago still have measurable carbon-14 in his bones when it's supposed to be gone 64.9 million years ago? You want to know what the answer is? A dinosaur bone is not 65 million years old. It's less than 6,000 years old. It would blow your mind if you knew the scientific evidence. By the way, this is scientific evidence. Notice I'm not saying, well, the Bible says so. We're accused of not using science, not believing in science. That's baloney. We absolutely believe in science. The scientific evidence does not support an Earth that's billions of years old. It does not support Darwinian evolution. It really doesn't.